Your salary went up. You got a raise, maybe even a promotion. So why does it still feel like you're falling behind? You earn more than you did 5 years ago, but your rent is higher. Your groceries cost more. Your insurance costs more. The house you wanted to buy is further away. And somehow, after working harder for years, you look at your bank account and wonder, where did all the extra money go? Maybe the problem isn't that you're earning too little. Maybe it's that the things you need are getting more expensive faster than the things you own are becoming valuable. And once you see that difference, the economy starts to look very different. Imagine you make $50,000 a year. Then your employer gives you a raise. Now you're making $55,000. It feels good. You worked for it. You earned it. You probably deserve it. But then life continues. Your rent goes up, your groceries go up, your car insurance goes up, your electricity bill goes up. Your morning coffee costs a little more, your weekend trip costs a little more. And the house you were hoping to buy, that went up too. So the number on your paycheck is larger, but the amount of life that paycheck can actually buy may not be. That's the part people often miss when they talk about wages. We look at income in numbers, but we experience income in purchasing power. And those are two very different things. A bigger paycheck doesn't automatically mean a richer life. It depends on what that paycheck can still buy. Inflation is usually explained with a simple sentence: prices go up. But that's not really what inflation feels like. Inflation feels like walking into the same supermarket you visited last year and quietly removing things from your shopping cart. Not because you suddenly stopped wanting them, because you started calculating. Maybe you used to buy better meat. Now you buy the cheaper one. Maybe you used to order takeout twice a week. Now it's once. Maybe you used to save $500 every month. Now it's $200. Nothing dramatic happened. You didn't lose your job. Your salary didn't collapse. Your lifestyle simply became more expensive. And that's what makes inflation so difficult to notice. It doesn't always take your money away in one dramatic event. It takes a little bit of your purchasing power over and over again, until one day you realize that the same income doesn't produce the same life. There's another problem. You can stop buying a new television. You can cancel a streaming service. You can eat out less. But there are expenses you can't simply unsubscribe from. You need somewhere to live. You need electricity. You need transportation. You need food. You need insurance. You need healthcare. And for millions of people, housing is the biggest one. That's why housing matters so much in the wealth story. If your rent rises, you don't simply lose money. You lose money that could have gone somewhere else, into savings, into investments, into a business, into education, into a down payment, into your future. And this is where the story becomes more interesting, because while your salary is trying to keep up with the cost of living, something else may be moving in the opposite direction. Assets. Here's where things get uncomfortable. Suppose your salary increases by 10%. You feel richer, but what if the house you wanted increased by 15%? What if rent increased by 8%? What if food increased by 6%? What if insurance and transportation increased too? Your income went up, but the things you were trying to buy went up faster. So you technically got richer, while becoming less able to afford the thing that matters most to you. This is why someone can earn more money every year and still feel stuck. They're not imagining it. They're comparing two different curves. One is their income, the other is the price of the things that build or preserve wealth. And those curves don't always move together. This is where our housing story comes back. Imagine two people. They both earn $50,000. One already owns a house worth $250,000. The other rents. 10 years later, both salaries have increased. Maybe they're earning $70,000. Sounds like progress. But suppose the house is now worth $500,000. The homeowner didn't necessarily work twice as hard. The house simply became more valuable. And that increase in value can become home equity. The renter doesn't get that increase. In fact, the renter may now face a completely different problem. The house that once cost $250,000 now costs $500,000. So the renter isn't just trying to save a larger down payment, they're trying to catch an asset that has already been moving. This creates a strange economic situation. Your salary is the reward for your work, An asset can increase in value while you sleep. And when those two things move at different speeds, wealth begins to separate from income. This doesn't mean homeowners are getting rich for doing nothing. They still have mortgages, they pay taxes, they pay insurance, they repair roofs, they replace heating systems. They deal with all the costs of owning a property. But ownership gives them something important: exposure to appreciation. If the property becomes more valuable, their equity can increase. And that creates another advantage. A homeowner with substantial equity has options. They may be able to borrow against it. They may eventually sell it and move somewhere cheaper. They may pass it to their children. They may use the accumulated wealth to help finance another investment. The renter doesn't automatically receive those options. Again, this isn't about one person being smarter than another. It's about entering the system at a different time. And timing can matter enormously when assets are involved. This is why the middle class can experience something that sounds almost contradictory. People are earning more. Technology is better. Cities are richer. Productivity is higher. Businesses are larger. And yet millions of people still feel financially squeezed because economic progress doesn't automatically mean equal access to wealth. You can participate in a growing economy through your paycheck without owning the assets that benefit most from that growth. You can work in a city that becomes more valuable without owning a piece of the land underneath it. You can help build new buildings without being able to afford one. You can work for a company whose value rises without owning enough of that company to benefit meaningfully from it. And that creates a very different kind of inequality. Not simply who earns more, but who owns what. When people talk about becoming wealthier, the conversation usually starts with income. Get a better job, work harder, learn a new skill, ask for a raise, start a side business, and all of those things can help. But there's another question we don't ask often enough. What happens to the money after you earn it? Does it sit in an account? Does it disappear into rent? Does it pay for a mortgage? Does it buy assets? Does it go toward debt? Does it create something that can become more valuable over time? Because earning money is only one part of the wealth equation. The second part is what you're able to do with it. And the third is whether the things you own can grow alongside the economy. That's where the difference between income and wealth becomes impossible to ignore. Maybe that's why the question, "Why don't I feel richer?" isn't as simple as it sounds. You might actually be earning more, you might be working harder, you might be making better financial decisions than your parents did at your age. But if housing, assets, and essential expenses are rising faster than your purchasing power, your experience of the economy can still feel like you're moving backward. And this is why looking only at wages can be misleading. A salary tells you how much money comes in. It doesn't tell you what that money can buy. It doesn't tell you what assets you own. It doesn't tell you how much debt you carry. And it certainly doesn't tell you how far you are from financial security. Two people can earn the same salary um, and have completely different financial lives because one may own assets and the other may simply be paying for access to them. So maybe the question isn't, how can I make more money? Maybe that's only the beginning. The more important question is, how can I make sure the money I earn actually moves me forward? Because if your income rises, but the price of housing, assets, and everyday life rises faster, then a bigger paycheck can become an illusion of progress. You earn more, you spend more, you need more, and you keep running. The real story of money isn't just about how much you make. It's about what becomes more valuable while you're working for it. And that's where things get really interesting. Because if wages can rise for years while your purchasing power barely moves, who is actually capturing the growth of the economy? That's the question we'll follow next. This is The Truth of Money.